The journey to authenticity is different for each person, but there are things that we can learn from each person's journey to authenticity. So, we're going to be having that conversation today, learning from folks about the things that they've learned about themselves, about the courage it took to embrace that journey to authenticity, and tonight's conversation on Let's Chat.
I always like to create an environment where people feel comfortable to ask questions. You don't always know what you don't know. You may not have it all figured out today, and that's okay. Taking one step at a time, those glimmers become a consistent light. It all finally begins to click. Each and every moment that you experience is shaping the person you are in this life to be.
Sometimes our pain points go all the way back to childhood.
What if I allowed myself to imagine a life that was more spacious and expansive than the one I'm living?
What if I don't have to live the same way that everyone else is living?
When you are authentic, your energy changes and the people around you change. It's just like doors just start opening. You're like, well, wait, how did this happen? How did this happen? How did this happen? You're showing up completely different.
And often it does require healing and going in some uncomfortable spaces before we can truly flourish.
Hello, and thank you so much for joining me for Let's Chat. My name is Shayla Reeves, and today we're going to be talking about embracing the journey authenticity. I'm going to go ahead and bring up each of our four participants for today. We have Dr. ZAKIA ROBBINS-MCNEAL. She's an accountability coach, author, and professor. Thanks for coming back, Dr. Z. We have NIKKI MCCOMB. She is the executive director of Art is My Weapon. Thanks so much for joining the Let's Chat family. And we have, of course, Amanda Jacobson. She's a comedian, podcast host, and business owner. Amanda, welcome back. And then last but not least, Coach Dawn Johnson. She is Coach Dawn, life and mindset coach. Thank you all so much for sharing a little bit of your Friday night to have this conversation and hopefully push others forward in their journeys to authenticity as well. I'll start with you, Coach Dawn. I know you spent a lot of years in corporate America before really deciding to embrace your vision, your passion. What have you learned about yourself in this journey to embracing authenticity? What has it taught you about yourself?
Ooh, it taught me to love myself, warts and all. And it has been the most fulfilling part of my life to be on a healing journey. And it was great to hear the intro where everyone talked about it's like it's uncomfortable. It doesn't always feel good. It's not supposed to be rainbows and butterflies when you actually decide, because it is a choice. And unfortunately, not many of us in the collective are choosing to go inward and heal. And it's just the most heart fulfilling place to be now in my journey. And as a life and mindset coach, my mission is to be your guide into your healing journey. I want everyone to take this path.
And it can really be scary when you have to go within and kind of look at some of those uncomfortable places, some of those pieces of who you are that maybe you tucked away or didn't want to have to face, and you tried to live around them. To finally really step into the fullness and wholeness of who you are, sometimes you have to face those things. Nikki, can you talk a little bit about for yourself and your journey for authenticity? What has it taught you about you and who you are as a person?
I think just listening to you talk, Dawn, I think one of the biggest things that I learned about me is that I cannot please everybody. And I have to start from within and understand that what I'm delivering is meant for something, but I don't have to please everybody. I can't please everybody. It's just impossible. And I even as a child, I would try to, I would do wrong to please someone or do wrong to make someone happy. And it took me a long time to figure that out. And so as an adult now, I, even to my daughter, like I preach, to my daughter and young people that you have to look within first and understand about pleasing yourself before going outward and pleasing other people.
And sometimes the things we do to please other people, it kind of takes us away from the person we deep down know ourselves to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And Amanda, for you as well, what is your journey to authenticity taught you about the person you know yourself to be?
I think what it's taught me the most is that external validation and like kudos are not fulfilling in the way I think I was either raised or just learned from society and my surroundings that they were, and that I'm not going to achieve my own, full potential by trying to seek outside validation. If I'm not validating and loving myself, then it's not going to get me anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And sometimes for everyone, that process of stepping into the fullness of who you are, it may happen when you're younger, it maybe happens when you're older, but all those experiences that you have sort of line up to shape this person you're in this life to be. Dr. Z, what are some of the challenges, I guess, that people kind of face as they're trying to step into the fullness of who you are? Sometimes it's a juggling act of managing the expectations that other people might have for you versus the expectations that you may have or want to have for yourself. And so much of how we live and who we are, we're wondering, are we okay? Did we do this? Okay, we're looking for external validation. And sometimes the journey that you're on may require you to be in and occupy a space where maybe you don't get that validation that you think you need, right?
Yep. So Amanda, she just mentioned something about society. Society can come in terms of family, can come in terms of friends, can come in terms of your boss, can come in terms of your kids. A lot of times, our experiences growing up shape us to be who we are. And once you get older, once you start to realize this is not who I really am, then the inner turmoil starts. The turmoil starts when you start to realize I'm not happy. I'm not comfortable. I'm miserable. And then only then can you start to shift into being your authentic self. Once you realize that you're not happy or comfortable pleasing other people around you.
And sometimes it feels like it starts as a little tiny voice, and then it gets louder and louder over time. And then sometimes you get maybe affirmation in your real life that maybe you need to chart a different course. Do you ever feel like that's the case for you, Coach Dawn?
Oh, 100%. And when you get to that space of healing where you start to embrace and embody, that little tiny voice is you talking to you. And sometimes that voice, it does get louder because you're not paying attention. And so that's why triggers happen. Like, oh, this person triggers me. Guess what? That's a message for your internal system to recognize. But of course, we want everybody around us to change to make us feel good. And that's not how this life works. It works by you going inward and recognizing what your stuff is. People are mirrors to our stuff. And I say to myself every day after I finish my meditation, the light within me recognizes and acknowledges the light within you. So when you choose to look through the lens of love and through the lens of the light and through the lens and the feeling that you've embodied in your healing journey, just like Dr. Z says, all that smack starts to change around you because you start to change, because you start to filter and see things in such a more beautiful way. But all of those things start with the work that you do within. And yes, it's supposed to be hard because many of these things are childhood things. Many of these things we were born with. We came through, our mother's womb with many of these messages that have, that are stuck. And through life and dealing with people, and just like NIKKI said, and people pleasing, you start to find out some of these lived experiences, some of these things that we were taught as children. We get older and went, wait a minute, that's not mine. That was my mama's, that was my grandmother's. You find out that all of these messages that you're carrying around in your body actually aren't yours to carry. And so that's when we got to start letting go. Got to start dealing with it. You can't keep pushing it down. You actually have to embrace it, embody it, and love it, because it's you. It's your special message for your DNA to deal with it. So you have to let go of those things to heal. Healing is really about what are you deciding to let go of.
And letting go, it can be painful, it can be scary, it can be unnerving, because that has been your foundation for your life, and to let go of what you know to become who you really are, it can feel like you're just jumping and you don't know if something's going to catch you in the end. Amanda, can you tell us a little bit about your story? I think it's so interesting. Like, we've talked about it through changing careers, feeling the fear, do it anyway, but you were on a completely different career path than you are now. And then it was just through chance that your friends saying, hey, join me on this journey. And now you're, creating a whole different life for you.
Yeah.
Can you share a little bit of that and how that journey has kind of helped you step into more of who you are?
I mean, it's terrifying when you're in a comfortable place, even if that place doesn't really serve you, to leave that comfortable place. And I think that was the hardest part of the transition for me, was that I wasn't necessarily thriving or flourishing working in restaurants, but I was really good at it and I was comfortable doing it. And so the idea of stepping out of that comfort was deeply unsettling and hard to overcome. But I think, stepping into authenticity also means learning and growing and gaining an understanding of not only yourself, but the world around you. And so I feel like, especially with this podcast that we do together, so much of the foundation of it and the content of it is the connection between the three of us as friends, and then the connection that we have with the people that are listening. And you can't foster connections like that without authenticity. And if you try to do that, everyone listening is going to know immediately that you're faking it. You can't lie your way into authenticity. And so it came with some scary stuff where if you're choosing to be authentic and you're choosing to be open, then that's sometimes the ugly parts of you and the beautiful parts of you that are just kind of out there for everybody to see. And taking accountability and feedback and those eyes as a gift has been a huge part of just my growth as a person and also a business owner.
That's wonderful. And NIKKI, can you talk a little bit about for yourself? You mentioned people pleasing as a child. Was there a point where you got older and you noticed the amount of weight that maybe you were placing in that space where you said, I need to make a change? Or how difficult was it to make that change when you noticed, how much attention, I don't know if attention is the right word, but how much power you were giving other people over the person that you were by trying to please them and accommodate their needs and wants?
I'll be authentic about it, as we should. It has been most recently in the last, I'm gonna say maybe 7 years. And I'm I'm a young spring chicken, so don't let that fool you. So it's I actually had to not only look inside of me, but listen to some of the people around me that cared the most for me and about me. Because even in 6 years ago, I still had this element of me where I wanted everybody else to be happy, even if it meant that I was last at it, my daughter, her friends, my family members, my friends, intimate partner, whatever the case was, it was always a battle to, I don't like when other people aren't happy, but I also don't like myself not to be happy. So then I would have that internal fight afterwards, and it would just burn me.
And so, did you just say, I'm tired of being burned? Did you get to that space?
Yeah. And then I just, even before that, I didn't really have a filter about who I am. I mean, I've always said the things that I wanted to say and did the things that I wanted to do. But I would find a way to incorporate everyone else's happiness in that. Now, I think more than ever, I'm first. Like, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I'm first, and it's just the way it is.
And do you find that you're allowing yourself to be okay if the choice of putting yourself first means disappointing others? Like you're okay with that?
Not always. I am not always, and I will think about it over and over and over and over again, and I'll just keep on going.
Yeah. But the choice to put you first, how do you feel compared to how you felt 6 or 7 years ago before making that decision?
Sometimes I feel very grounded and grateful and happy about whatever the situation is. And sometimes I still have those moments where I internalize it and I'm like, why? I should have done this, but no, I shouldn't have done that, because then I would have suffered, or this would have suffered, or this would have gone by the wayside. I still have those lingering thoughts here and there on some circumstances, but I've learned how to cope and how to do things differently without hurting myself.
Right. And Dr. Z, how important is it for us to acknowledge? I mean, sometimes we're not going to feel completely settled with every move, every decision, but just the acknowledgement of how you feel and that unsettled feeling. I mean, that's how you feel. You can't just ignore it, but just acknowledge it, but maybe you don't give it the power that you once did.
Yes. Yes. And some of that stuff, it comes, it's like a learned thing. Just like you learn the way to people please and the way to make everybody else happy, you have to relearn how to put yourself first. You have to relearn how to be okay with upsetting some people. You have to be okay with, you know what, this is my decision and I'm going to stand on it. Sometimes when you just make a decision and stand on it, it takes away that analysis paralysis, to where you start to think, I'm like, oh, wait. No, stand on your decision and be all right with it. People will be all right. Life will go on. Life will go on, and you're not even wasting time or energy after the fact. Because sometimes you waste a lot of time after the fact trying to see if you made the right decision, as opposed to just being okay with this is what it is and let the chips fall where they may.
One thing I started doing, and I think therapy is like one of those things when life gets really hard and you don't have all the answers, go. And I started going back myself this year. And one of the things that's really helped, My therapist encouraged me whenever I felt that little voice coming up that was starting to doubt and starting to question, to start acknowledging it. I gave it the name Felicia. So if I feel my fear coming, I'll say, bye, Felicia. And if that's not enough to get her to leave, then I will say, Felicia, I know you're there, but I'm going to do this now. And so acknowledge that the fear exists, but and say, I recognize this, but I'm going to do this other thing now, even though you're there. And it was sounded like such a crazy thing, just like saying that, but it actually started to help me not live in that rabbit hole that you can go down of self-doubt when you're not sure if the decision that you made was the right one. And then you start spiraling emotionally on the inside. And then you're like, wait, how did I get here? And so acknowledging that you have that fear, and then saying, I know it's there, but I've got to do this other thing. It's kind of helped me be more present, and more so live in the person that I know myself to be, which is creative, deep thinker that loves to laugh and help other people see the best of who they are. I do have fears, but this is who I am. And it's a balance to stay connected to the person that you know yourself to be. Coach Don, when you meet people or work with people, and you know, a lot of times people are in careers that really aren't in alignment with the person that they know themselves to be. Maybe they are working this field, but their passion is over here, and they don't know how to step into more of living that life that embraces the things that are truly who they are. What do you offer in the way of advice when it comes to how do I start living a more authentic life?
So I will definitely say the difference between like a life coach and a therapist, I don't actually give advice.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
I don't. I guide you to your own answers.
Okay.
Because that's where true transformation is within you. And so it's not like I'm talking at you. We get to this place when you start to let go and hone in on, like, who are you? I start to identify what the things are. Like you so eloquently said, you know, this is who Shayla is. I'm creative, just all the things, and just the constant reminder, you know, as a life coach, I life coach my damn self every day.
Yeah.
Okay. So I can be good at life coaching you. I have to do these practices myself. So just getting the individual to really take some time and be still. Because when I left corporate America, corporate America decided to leave me, which was the best gift ever. Okay. And so that is what sent me on my trajectory to heal. Some people have these life-changing moments, these life-shifting moments that causes them to want to go and do something different, the desires of their hearts. And other people just simply get to that point where they're just tired of their own ish, right? And so just allowing people this opportunity to be still and go inward and start to categorize. What am I super dope at? What are my gifts that are completely unique to my DNA? There's only one Dr. Z. There's only one Nikki. There's only one Amanda and one Shayla. We can all be coaches. There's enough room for all of us to do whatever the thing is, because there's nobody like you. And so getting people to really embrace their light and their goodness and stop focusing on your limitations. We will beat ourselves up, especially as women. We will beat ourselves up with the 60 to 70,000 thoughts we have a day. Most of them are not good. Just getting people to get to that space of love, because love and fear cannot coexist in the same space. So when we get you this space of really talking about all the things that move you, all the things that inspire you, inspiration is internal, motivation is external. When we get to this place of vibing on our internal goodness, that's how these beautiful shifts start to develop and unfold.
And sometimes you can even see when you're talking to somebody, if they're talking about one thing and then you see their face just light up when they transition to a different topic.
Yeah.
You're like, oh my gosh, why are you not doing more of this? Like,
Exactly. And then
yes.
we just guide you back to center. It's like, let's get back to this thing. Because people don't really, it's like you don't really take the time to acknowledge your goodness. Because we spend more time on beating ourselves up and believing, the outside world and all the labels that get placed on us, and we get stuck there and don't know how to move. So having a therapist, having a coach, having someone who is a great accountability partner, who loves you and who can really see that divine light within you to help. Let's pull this out and nurture it. And then you just get super fired up about it. Once you get connected to the thing, you're on fire. And you can never go back. Once you get to that place, you ain't going back there because it's too dope right here and right now.
And to kind of piggyback off of that, sometimes people can get stuck because you think you have to be good at one thing or you have to fit in one box, but you can be a whole bunch of different things and embrace them all. And you don't have to pick. Like, you can be passionate about a lot of different things, be who you are. And even if you don't fit in the box that someone else feels or the world feels you should be in, that's okay. If the space in which you exist, embracing all the pieces that feel like you show up in the realest, most truest form in that way, then there's nothing wrong if you don't fit. Amanda, do you have a lot of interests as well? I know you're a comedian, you're a podcast host, you were great in restaurant business, and you don't really have to just say, I'm just going to be a podcast host or I'm just going to be a comedian. You can embrace the totality of who you are. And how has that been for you?
I mean, it's been extraordinary because I think stepping into an authentic role for myself from a professional standpoint opened so many doors for me to explore all kinds of other things that I didn't even know that I'd be interested in, let alone decent at. So I've gotten to meet so many incredible people and explore so many new and exciting skills. I mean, we're currently working on writing a book and we're currently working on expanding our business, and we got into making our own wine, and it's just stuff that I didn't envision for myself ever, 5 years ago when we started this project. So yeah, I mean, I just think that there's so much to learn when you really devote time to learning about yourself and exploring those possibilities. And what comes back to you is always more than you could have imagined. It's always more abundant than you could have imagined. So yeah, I mean, you've so beautifully captured, especially the last time we spoke, feeling the fear and doing it anyway. Since you said that has been like a mantra in my own life. And I think it's such a valuable lesson and such a gift that you're giving through these conversations. So thank you.
Well, I'm appreciative of you all and your willingness to share this kind of space with me. And I know, Dr. Z, as you said, in the intro, when you step into the fullness of who you are, you may show up completely different to the people around you who are used to you occupying space in one way. But maybe when you step into the fullness of who you are, they may not recognize that person, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't become more of who you are because they don't recognize it.
Right. Sometimes those people can come along with you, and sometimes you meet the people that are more in tune and more aligned with the person that you authentically are now. Because the thing is, you could have been, you were different before, but when you become your authentic self, then those people, the people that you need in your life, the people that you want in your life, the people that will propel you forward, they will start to show up.
Mm-hmm. And NIKKI, did you feel like at all when you made that decision of, I'm going to put myself first? Did you feel like you ever had to shed any relationships or relationships that you had to adjust to you in a different way because of the choice that you were making to put yourself first? And how did you see those relationships change or transition? And how do you feel like you navigated that?
That's a a very good question, and I have a good answer, and I have not so good answers, because I have dissolved friendships that I've had for 30 years, simply based on needing to put me first, and just realizing that some of the people that I had around me were really not in my best interest, and they weren't rooting for me all the time, but I was major cheerleader, right, for them. And at some time in my life, I just was like, oh, well, this is just the way it's going to be. And then I was like, nah, no, it's not, because it's just not. I don't have to deal with the things that these people are bringing forth towards me or around me or whatever the case is. And, you know, I really, really, really believe in honoring relationships and friendships and things like that. And I have friends, you know, now that I have those discussions with about their friends, and they say things to me about my friends and whatever the case is. But I've honestly, you know, I've had a few friends that I've had for close to 28 years. And those friends have always been there, and they haven't been a part of ever having to juggle anything, because they've been their authentic self with me. I've been able to do that with them. And then just within the last 10 years, I've found another tribe of people, you know, women and men, that are my friends, that I would have never imagined would even be a fit to me. So now I will say my circle is very tight, but when you release yourself of folks, then it leaves room for you to bring other folks in that can bring new things to the table.
Did you feel like it was hard? Because sometimes we stay in things longer than we should, because those relationships, they're like 30 years old almost. And so you're maybe more cautious at times to leave or abandon things, because maybe it's part of growing comfortable, or there's, you know, we place value in longevity at times. Was it a process for you, or did you have a moment where you're like, wait a minute, this isn't serving me, I am at peace and letting go here?
I don't think I ever had like a I'm at peace moment. Like, it was a very slow transition, because for me it was extremely difficult, because I'm a person who, I was adopted, and I don't have grandparents and uncles and aunties and cousins and all of those. I don't have the extensions of those things that a lot of the people that within the last 10 years have given me. And you know, I call them family, you know the term.
Yeah.
And those relationships that have gone by the wayside or dissolved, they were my go-to, you know, Thanksgivings and Christmases and birthdays, and you know, all of those things that we all do as families and things like that. Like, I've always had a scattered thing, you know. It's like, if it's me, my daughter, my granddaughter, you know, I have very, very little connections to anything because I was adopted, you know. So that's why I take my relationships and friendships vitally serious.
Yeah. And I share that in my story too. I was adopted as well. And so, yeah, so sometimes it's kind of a journey to self, trying to figure out like who you are between everything that you've been taught and everything you've learned. And then once you try to figure out, okay, can I put all this aside and figure out who I am when I'm not filtering me through other experiences of other people or the experiences that I've learned. And just who am I at my core when I'm not taking all this other information that everyone else says this is who you should be. Yeah. So I totally can connect with that. I want to share a couple of comments here. Let's see. Jenny says, ZAKIA, you are so true. It's 100%. Sometimes you grow in different directions. And then let's see. She also says 100. And Leslie says, hey, Shayla. Hi, Leslie. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Of course, if you have any comments or feedback or if something resonates that you're hearing, certainly post it in the comments below and we can get it up on the screen or at least present those perspectives to everyone participating. And hopefully, if you have any questions, we can get our participants to answer some of those for you. Dr. Z, something that Nikki said that kind of stuck with me. Sometimes, like getting to that place of stepping into the fullness of who you are, it can feel painful, especially if you are required to let go of what's familiar, let go of what you know, let go of pieces of your life and people that are part of your life that have been along for the journey. What would you offer to folks who may be struggling in a space like that? Because not every relationship is here for life. Some relationships are just here for a season, and not everybody can go where you, as an authentic version of you, are trying to go.
Yep. So when you're faced with when you think you need to make a decision to let people go, sometimes the best decision is to just go with the flow. Sometimes people will take themselves out of your life. Like you might not even have to do anything. Just you showing up differently will create the resistance or create the energy that other people need to kind of go away. So then it takes the onus away from you where I'm not going to answer this person's call. I'm not going to respond to their text messages. It just makes it so easy because they just fall by the wayside. And sometimes you do have to have the hard conversations, but a lot of times it just goes away easily. It dissolves easily and effortlessly. And those are the best ways to honestly handle things because sometimes people aren't ready for those conversations, but you showing up differently, you behaving differently, you doing things just in general differently will change everything around you, as I always say.
That's such a great perspective. And sometimes the people around you don't recognize who you authentically are. Like they recognize this version of you that they saw, but if maybe they're not in a space of trying to live their most authentic life, then they don't know how to exist in the world that you're moving into. And they're like, we don't recognize this. And it's not always for them that moment where they're like, well, I'm going to grow with you. It's just, I don't recognize what this is. And then you are in a space where you have to decide, okay, how is this going to serve me? Maybe it doesn't serve me anymore. Right, Coach Don?
Yes, no, 100%. Dr. Z, all of that. All will drop. I prefer the method of just me living and existing in authenticity because, yes, as you flow and grow, people become really, uncomfortable and very triggered by your own healing. Healing itself can solve so many problems by you making that choice to heal. Because again, actually, let's just say most people cannot conceptualize what it is. Well, what are you doing? Oh, well, you're different. You're damn right I am. Okay, you're damn right. I suggest that you try this too. It's really dope here when you decide to deal with your ish instead of hurting everyone that you're around. And so you have to really to be self-aware of how you are showing up in this world. It is really important that you go inward and acknowledge your place in the world. And things around you start to change because you see, feel, embody a whole different lens. And so so when I tell people, well, I see the light in you. They're like, what? And it's cool. It's really cool. Like, here's the deal. I know I have 3 heads. I know there are times when I am literally a damn alien on this earth. I love her. She is awesome. I mean, she's really, and you should try it too. We don't have to be, we're not like anyone else, but this world and this collective is so scrambling to be the same. There's so much sameness. People are really one-upping each other in sameness, in toxicity, in pain, all of these things. And when you go on your journey, you see it, you actually feel it. And when we talk about having these difficult conversations, you don't really need to have them, because a lot of those people, they actually pick up their stuff and they leave.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
They pick up, I'm gonna go home, I'm gonna pick up my ball and go home. Or they just don't come in your space.
Right.
And I find that just remarkable in such a really good way. It's like they don't even mess with you. It's like, I'm gonna stay over here. Because your energy dictates everything. It's how you embody and the vibe that you give off. When we're authentic, you give off a vibe. And so that is something that people feel, because your eyes and your head and your mindset can lie to you. The vibes, that frequency, that energy, well, that don't lie. Okay? You just need to take time to listen to it and make your choices accordingly.
Such a great point. I'm going to share some of the comments that we're getting here. We have Derek Gant, great inspiring conversation. Thanks so much for sharing that. And Jenny said, not always easy to do, but so important to find a way to put yourself first. And Wendy shared, wow, I love what Dr. Z just said. When we show up differently, it can literally shift the atmosphere and help naturally dissolve some relationships. So true. One of the things that I was thinking of, Coach Dawn, as you were talking, is sometimes when we step into the fullness of who we are, other people don't recognize who we are. And sameness is comfort for other people. And it keeps us stuck or trapped in a smaller version of ourselves. And, once if we're living for other people, we're living small, and, we're not embracing the beauty and the magic and the vibrantness of the person that maybe we really are here in this life to be. Amanda, can you talk a little bit about, for you, as you sort of entered this new path that you're on, when you had told me before, when you were in the restaurant industry, a lot of what kept you there for a long time, or maybe longer than you desired to be there, as you were figuring out, what you wanted to do next, was health insurance, and you needed that. And then, being able to pay for what you needed to take care of yourself was important. But then when your friend's saying, make this financial investment, and what you all had, this unknown path is just like, I don't know where this is going to go. But then having that space where you're trying to decide, do I stay where I am, or do I really take on this new thing and see where it can take me? Was there fear in that space for you? And when you made that leap to live a life that felt more in alignment with the person you knew yourself to be, how did you navigate that space?
I mean, there was absolutely fear, and all of the incredible women on this panel have talked about this a lot, where your fear often comes from, it's the child inside, or it's a trauma that you've experienced. And so I know that growing up, I had a beautiful, warm, wonderful family, but my father also got really sick. He was also a type 1 diabetic. I am a type 1 diabetic. And just because of family circumstances, I spent a lot of my time caring for him and really seeing how, important it is to have access to things like healthcare and just, that kind of support. And so I think when facing the possibility of losing that safety net was very real, all of my childhood fear of kind of like caring for my dad and watching how sick he was rushed to the surface. And part of, stepping into your authentic self, as so many people have mentioned, is confronting those fears, naming them, and then also seeing how it's different. Like, I'm not my dad, and in many ways I'm not, and in many ways I am, because like him, I have support and I have a network that I can tap into in the event that I need help. And I think that was another fear to get over too. As a kid, it's like I was just the young, funny kind of comic relief in the family, and also a caregiver. And so I was used to having a lot kind of juggled on my plate from a young age, which is very common. And so I think there's a big part of me still that has a hard time asking for help, because I'm usually the one that someone will ask for help. And so it's hard to put on a different hat and go, it's okay, I can ask for help too. That doesn't mean that I'm weak, or that doesn't mean that I'm failing. It means that I'm being vulnerable and I'm being authentic by saying, hey, I need help with this. And so I got a lot of support, and things fall into place. Typically, when you put the right energy and ask out into the universe, typically it'll come back to you if you surround yourself with the kind of team and friends and family that are going to support you through that transition.
And what's so cool is, like, you had stayed in the restaurant industry for the healthcare parts maybe longer than you decided to be there, but now you are your own businesswoman, and you are able to have people working for you and provide those benefits, right, for them.
Yeah. So you take those things that you go through, and then when you have the opportunity to pay that back to the universe, you do it. So that's a foundational part of our value system. We are going to provide healthcare and paid leave and maternity leave and all of the psych leave, all of the support that should be provided by a company. We're going to work as hard as possible, and if that means taking pay cuts or whatever we need to do to make sure that we're prioritizing that as an offering to our employees, so that everybody has that safety net and everybody feels safe working in that environment.
Great perspective there. We've got about 15 minutes left. So if you have any comments that you would like to leave, any perspectives you want to share, be sure to post those in the comments, and we will get those on the screen for everyone on our panel to share their perspectives. This is such a great conversation. I just am enjoying everything that you all are bringing to the table. And my hope is that conversations like this will push the people watching forward even a little bit in whatever they're dealing with or navigating in their own life. While the journey to authenticity is a personal one, it's a journey that no matter what you look like, where you are, you probably have found yourself in a place at some point saying, like, does this or that feel like it's in alignment with who I know myself to be? So hopefully you hear something today that will push you forward in your individual journey, or at least give you a little more courage to stay on that path of living a life that feels most in alignment with the person that you know yourself to be. Dr. Z, if you could offer any words to someone that may be watching and they're saying, I hear everything that they're saying, I'm just kind of trying to figure out how to live more in alignment. Sometimes it's not going to be like a one size fits all, something you're going to figure out in one day. Sometimes you may have to take little small steps by just doing a little bit of something once a week or once a day that feels like it's serving your soul or serving who you know yourself to be at your core. Maybe it's not, I'm just going to switch careers, but maybe it's just honoring that inner voice and doing just a little bit of something to acknowledge it every day.
Yes. So when you're thinking about changing, or when you see something or you feel something that does not feel right, it does not sit well in your spirit, making a decision to change is not like an all or nothing thing. Acknowledging that you're not comfortable is the first step, and then deciding what you think you want to look like or what you think you want to feel like. Every day, do something that kind of guides you towards that guides you to get even just like 1% towards where you're trying to go every single day. Do something small. It can be something that takes 2 minutes or 5 minutes or even 30 seconds. Start somewhere. You do not have to do it all or nothing, because if you try to do all or nothing, 9 times out of 10 you fail, or it's not successful, or you get so frightened at the thought of change that you completely revert back to where you were not happy in the first place. So I always just say, just start small. Do something every single day. Do something that propels you towards where you're trying to be, and then you'll start to feel more comfortable, and then your people will come.
Such a great point. Let's see. We have Leanna here. I feel like women, especially mothers, have a hard time asking for help because society has taught us we're supposed to nurture others first and our needs are secondary. It's hard to unlearn that. Anyone want to add on or comment on that?
Look at Quit
Okay.
raising your hand, sis.
Yes.
My mute is off. Here's the thing. You can't take care of other people if you don't take care of yourself. So you have to flip that script. How can you take care of somebody else if you're not taking care of yourself? You can't pour from an empty cup. I always say that. You have to pour from the saucer, pour from the overflow. Make sure that you are filling yourself up so that you can show up and actually be of service to the people that you're trying to help. Because if you're coming at negative 25%, as opposed to 125%, what are you giving? What are you offering?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's very old programming.
Right.
We're all like a computer, right? You know, and now it's time for that update. And the new update is that I'm going to take care of me. The narrative of taking care of everybody, this entire collective, especially as Black and brown women, we have nothing. So that stops today. If there's one thing that we can do, we can stop doing that. We can stop, drawing from this empty cup and doing for others first before we take care of ourselves and nurture our beautiful, loving souls first. That's old programming that women are supposed to do and take care of and nurture. Guess what? We can do all those things. But the suggestion here today is take it inside first.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then everybody else, trust me, won't miss a beat because you'll be full. You'll be ready and embodied and ready to go out there and do the work. But start with you. Let's shift the narrative on these old programs.
I think something that's super important that both of you touched on is that looking around you, you have, and then again, this is something I've learned in the last however many years, but making sure that all of the negative elements of humans are not a part of your life. Like you have to shed and drop those people that bring elements of negativity. No matter, sometimes you gotta love your family from a distance, or friends that you've had, like we talked about, 20, 30 years, and celebrate those people that you were, they might be the best people for you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And NIKKI, I wanted to ask you, did you feel like when you decided to put yourself first that you were able to show up differently or in a more meaningful way, or a way that felt more meaningful to you for the relationships that you did value and say, I want to keep these?
I'm going to say that I probably did. I may not have noticed at the time that those things happened because I've always been such an overdoer. So it probably felt, I'm not even going to say probably, it felt like normalcy afterwards, like less work, because I've always overworked, in dealing with folks that really didn't give a shit about me, Excuse my language.
That's okay.
I didn't even notice.
It happened.
So you basically, like, you were able to give more time and energy to the people that were worthy of that time and energy.
Yes, and also be able to see that those people are doing maybe things that I did and say, like, hey, let that person go. You got to let that person go, because I can see how the damage happens when you're in their presence. It's like an instant, like when my grandbaby walks in the room and she knows she done took something she ain't supposed to take off my dress, and I'm like, good. You can tell.
Yes,
it's an instant change.
Yes. It's like you could spot those things before they go through what following that path where it's going to lead. Like you could spot it before they take the journey, and whether or not they choose to take it is on them. But you can know from experience and share from your experiences. Like, hey, like here's a warning.
Well, and something I have definitely only learned from following Black women specifically is that as a white person, the way that I show up and how I will be armed to the teeth to cause more harm in the spaces that I occupy is a direct reflection on my lack of doing the inner work. And so like, if we're not filling our own cup and if we're not putting our mask on and like really evaluating what's going on with ourselves and our, you know, our own trauma, because we've inherited a lot of violence as white people. Like if we're not healing that, then we're showing up in spaces where we are going to cause more harm. And so if you want to do good things in the world and you want to be, you know, you don't want to cause harm, you have to focus on healing yourself. And that's part of your journey to authenticity, as all of you have pointed out so deeply.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Shayla, that's another show. I think that
I will not be present for that show.
Let's talk about it.
Hey, I'm open to talking about it, but I am not a leader in that area. So,
well,
I
am doing a conversation, and I'm having NIKKI back for this one, but I would love to have you back for it too, Amanda. It's on creating space for conversation, focusing on like social justice, impact, and you know, how people show up in that space. Mm-hmm. And I know, you know, you do some things through social media in real life to try to support and elevate other voices, and use your platform to help others feel heard. And I would love to have you back for that. I'll keep you on the radar for it, because I feel like, yeah, I mean, I think it's great to have all voices at the table, and everybody has something to contribute to the space. And hopefully push us all forward. Let's see. Jessica Horton, great conversation as always. Thank you so much. Jessica will be joining me in a couple days too for a conversation on Sunday. So before we go, I am so grateful that you all spent a little time with me today. If you could leave everyone with something, what would you want them to take away when it comes to embracing the journey to authenticity? I'll start with you, Coach Dawn.
I'm going to go with surrender. Be vulnerable. Allow for yourself just to be and to heal. Stop holding on to so many things so tightly. There's so much peace and healing when you just go, okay, I'm surrendering to whatever it is that I need to be right now, and let go.
Mm-hmm. And NIKKI, what would you like to leave people with?
I on top of surrendering, would say, give yourself a break from the things that you work so hard to keep all right, and you know that they're not really all right. Give yourself a break to just sit with yourself and listen to what inside says, because inside usually is the key to everything.
Yes, it is.
I love that. And Amanda, what would you like to leave people with?
You know, something that actually Coach Dawn brought up earlier that really resonates with me is like, people saying you've changed, stop viewing that as a dirty word. Like, that's not a bad thing. If someone, and people have said that to me, people breaking up with me have said that to me, and I just want to be like, well, good. I've changed. Why haven't you? Like, you know, time is passing. We're learning. We're growing. Like, join me.
Wow. Yes. It reminds me, it's not you, it's me. Yeah. I'm growing. I'm getting better. Yes.
Exactly.
You want to join? Jessica says here, I love that, Coach John, be vulnerable and surrender. And last but not least, Dr. Z, what would you like to leave people with today?
I wrote notes. So a lot of times we bond or create relationships and friendships through trauma bonding, through, I'm always going to call drama bonding. And that's when it's just like brute force. It's always something going on. It's always negativity. It's always just like, rah, rah, rah. However, when you do the healing, when you show up now as you're not latching on to people because of that trauma and drama bonding, and you're becoming your authentic self and you're going with the flow, everything just feels so much easier and peaceful. Once you find that peace, it makes it so much easier to not go back to that negative trauma and drama that you were so accustomed to. And it makes it so much easier for you to release those types of people from your life.
I love that.
I can be deep sometimes. Sometimes I can be deep.
Yes.
Amanda, you got to say, yes, I'm different. I'm new. I'm changed. I'm the shit now.
I'll practice that.
Put it on a t-shirt. Yes, I'm changed.
Yes, I'm changed. I'm the shit.
Yes, Jessica says drama bonding. Ooh-wee. I know that feels like that could be a whole let's chat too.
It could.
Drama bonding. Yes. I think
That is
that
the
on the
thing.
calendar. Yes. Talk about drama bonding.
We could call all of my ex-boyfriends and really have a fun time with that conversation. I'm sure they'd love it.
Well, thank you all so much for joining me for Let's Chat. Of course, still leave any comments if anything resonated with you. We can read those once we wrap up. I hope you'll join me next time. I actually have another conversation coming up on Sunday. It's on 2:30 in the afternoon Central Time, and we're going to be talking about finding yourself again, or finding myself again when life changes. Maybe you lost a job, or maybe you have spent your whole career working professionally and now you need to come home and care for your kids, and you're like, I don't know who this person is. Like, how do I exist in this space? And so we're going to be talking to people about, finding themselves again, and the journey to finding themselves again, and what it's taught them, what they've learned, what's worked, what were the biggest challenges, all of that stuff on Sunday at 2:30. Thanks so much for joining me for Let's Chat, and thank you all. Stay here for just a second once I end the chat, and I'll catch you in the backstage area. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Be well.